Are you eagerly awaiting the next Haken album? Are you thinking that Native Construct is taking way too long for their second album? Do you want something that's great in the Leprous but a little bit more in the symphonic sounding? Well, do I have news for you. The Observer by Artificial Language. So Artificial Language is a US progressive rock metal outfit. They take influences very heavily from Haken, Native Construct, as well as Leprous, in that same kind of a playing style. The songs, though, are much shorter. The longest track on The Observer is the Turn Off the Picture, the final track, at just over 8 minutes. Everything else is very digestible, not even touching 5 minutes. I think the other longest song is just over 4, so it's much more digestible chunks. The overall atmosphere definitely feels like, as I said, Haken, Native Construct, as well as a little bit of Leprous, so if you're into those bands, you're really going to enjoy this outfit. The album opens up with the title track of The Observer, and I knew that I was hooked right from the get-go. It almost sounded like a Between the Buried and Me opening track, like very similar to the opening track that we had from the Parallax, and it laid down such a great style, and I was really excited to hear the rest of the album. Now, it's not perfect, but it is a great time. The one thing that I will mention right off the bat is the playing style. It reminds me almost of like a Symphony X in providing almost like a classical stylist of their quicker movements, and this is seen within the second track of The Grand Skeptic. Just that opening guitar riff of it sounds very Mozart in that sense. The songs leading into the midpoint, These Aren't Mirages, Unself-Portrait, The Silver Chord, they're all very punchy and they're all very meaty as well. The guitars are playing very well with the drum section. Like, these guys are just, even though this is their first album, they feel very comfortable with playing with one another. Now, the only thing is each of the songs don't really have a whole lot of deviation from the norm, and it isn't until we get to Change that we're starting to hear something a little bit different. Now, because the songs are so short, they are also very catchy, and this is felt within Playing the River. Before I get to Playing the River, Change does have exactly that. It's a change up of the style. It's a lot more subdued, it's a lot more mellow, and it ushers us into the second half. I like the fact that right in the center of this album we have this little bit of a breather from such heavy hitting tracks, because with so much happening with such a short period of time within each, it's really hard to differentiate each of the tracks. So I'm glad they have this little bit of a touchstone for us to go into the second half. And Playing the River is one of my favorite tracks off of this. This opens up the second half, and it really does. It just hits you full force. I love that mid piece, and the musicianship, again, is just mwah. Dirty Hands again kind of falls within what I had already said about These Aren't Mirages and all those ones from the first half. Fortune Teller opens up very similar to Say It Like Beethoven's, I think it's the second part within the Moonlight Sonata, within that kind of like and so again, that's more of I guess what sets these guys apart from all those other bands that kind of do the same thing. They're very heavily influenced by the classical movements, and this again is seen within Mazes, the second last track, and it kind of takes everything that has come before it and is still playing with it in a very fun way. Now, the final piece, the Turn Off the Picture, this is probably my favorite. Like, Playing the River and this kind of go back and forth as to which one is actually my favorite, but I think at the end of the day, Turn Off the Pictures, because it is the longer track, it gives me a little bit more to sink my teeth into. Because the songs found on this album are so short, it's really a hard time to really get into them, and it's only on repeated listens that I'm able to really dig into the song. Turn Off the Pictures allow me to just kind of get in and experience some of the build-ups that the band will produce. And they do a fantastic job at that, so A+ in that sense. Now, the one overall thing that I love about this album is also how short it is. If this went on into, say, like the hour mark or the 50-minute mark, or heck, even into the 80-minute mark, I would have been turned off very quickly. But the fact that it's just over the 40-minute mark is just enough that I experience the music, but I'm not bogged down by it. And I think the shorter tracks need that kind of shorter runtime to really get into it, because at the end, I want to go back and re-listen to a lot of those standout tracks. So that definitely worked to its advantage. And I've been kind of flip-flopping in my mind if I really like the shorter pieces, because that's another way that this band has removed themselves from bands such as Native Construct and Haken. I know I've really used those bands as a springboard into this, but I mean, when the influences are worn on the sleeve so heavily, it's really hard not to make that same comparison. And so it works if you're enjoying those albums, and it also works in providing something new as well. So overall, I've really been enjoying this album. It's an album that I keep coming back to. I can see where the band is coming, and I hope they take this and grow into the next endeavor that they go for. Overall, I've been enjoying this album. I really highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're a fan of this style of music. I definitely gotta say, you gotta download this album, have it on your computer, have it on your device. But that's about it for me. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.